obviously there's going to be people that have different levels of where they're at with,
I think it goes back to
with
what Christ
Christ.
said earlier. By the fruits you'll know them. So often, you're going to know it. Because the tree is known by its fruit, and you can't fake the fruit for long.
Yeah.
And there's going to be things you're not going to. It's not been my experience. I have to wait for them to tell me they're not a Christian.
James, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We always wanted to hire mature or maturing Christians. And you don't always know that until down the road a little bit. But we want all of our staff to, because they all have times of interaction with our clients. And so I always want them all to be able to have a solid testimony to be able to share with those clients. So that's been our rationale for being super careful in who we hire, even when it came down to, and I know that various missions do other things, but when we had volunteer groups, I had written a number of sample letters to be able to send to the Seventh-day Adventist group or the Community of Christ who wanted to come and bring their church and their church van that says Community of Christ or Jehovah's Witness. So we had policies not to allow those groups to come because, again, they have interaction with our clients, and I don't want a client to come and say, oh, Jehovah's Witness, I always thought it was a cult, but you're letting them come and minister to us or feed us. And so we were really careful in that regard, and I did not call rescue missions in that way. That was what I thought was important for us.
I think two things that go with this a little bit. Last night, one of my staff members, I had Bud called him, and he texted me and said, hey, I got a question for you. And he said, tomorrow I'm giving a tour of a Mormon group, and this guy that was giving the tour is very outward about his Christian faith, and he said, do you have any, I mean, he's bold about it. Would you say Adam's pretty bold about it? Yeah, so I told him, I said, and this is just for the troops of Rockers. I said, well, just tell the cult that we serve a risen Savior, promised in the Old Testament and fulfilled in the New. Case closed, no more books need to be read. That's right. So he loved that. He thought that was funny. But I say that to say this too, because I think this passage goes on. Yes, we want to be a testimony, but as Christians, we're fighting a battle that we're not seeing, right? There's a battle not just against flesh and blood, but against all the things that are around us. And it says in James, consider it all joy, my brother, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let that endurance have a perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives it all generously without reproach, and it will be given to you. So I say that to say that we're not just doing it for testimony, we're also on a battle, and we've got to be on the same page. If we're not on the same page, boy, Satan's going to get in there and divide us. And if you have a Mormon working there or somebody that doesn't believe exactly as Christian walk is, it's going to be a battle. And they're not on the same team as you are. And so it's going to make it tough. And then at the end of that, I love what it says. It says, go and pray for wisdom. He will give it generously to you. So be praying all the time for that wisdom, because that will help you in the hiring process. I pray even for wisdom for my staff. Adam needs a lot of wisdom. I pray for him all the time. So, but no, not joking aside, I think praying for wisdom is one of the most important things that we can do, because God will give it to us generously and without reproach, he says. You just have to do it by faith. If you ask for that wisdom by faith, you will get it.
And I hear all of you again. You're really pastoring, discipling your staff. And so sometimes you're teaching about how to respond to people that they would normally have to be responding to. I think that was their faith. So pushing that a little bit harder. What issues have you had to deal with where a person on your staff was walking with the Lord, working with you for a while, and then they fall into some sin? You find out they got messed with pornography or some really something you want, how do you grow their faith in situations that are issues of lack of?
Gotta be careful, I gotta what you say. If I say something, I'll be revealing something.
I'll say this, I had mentioned that we had, it was a pretty major affair at our mission a few years back. And, so much so that I fired them. I mean, you're not able to work here at that point because you have broken really a whole lot of different things. And the folks that were being fired were people that worked directly with the staff, or the folks in our program. How can I say, hey, it's okay for them to be doing this? You can't do that. Interesting thing is, both of them that were in that relationship still text me, asking me Christian things, asking me for prayer, even though I fired them, they still come and ask for those, because there's still a desperate need for them. And I wish I could have ministered to them more at the mission and said, hey, yeah, you can stay here. But I'm not ministering just to them, I'm also ministering to the folks that are coming in the program. And that would have devastated our program at the time, having somebody there that had gone through that.
I think that's important. Sometimes you gotta think about the rest of this mission and staff. I can't minister to you anymore.
We've had similar issues, and it really depends on the situation for us. I've almost gotten in trouble with our board for some decisions that I've made. We're in the rescue missions are in the restoration business. That's part of it anyway. Not just people that come to know the Lord, but there are others who come broken and who knew the Lord and who've fallen away. So we've had staff members who have done really stupid things, and depending on their situation and their attitude and their willingness to say to do some pretty hard things. One person was involved prior to marriage sexually, and they didn't have connection with clients, but they had a connection with other staff members that they worked with. And so one of the requirements was you need to be able to go and talk to your fellow staff members and ask for prayer and that kind of thing. And there were several other things you need to requiring. One of the requirements is you go to your pastor and let your pastor know what has happened. And then I required hearing from the pastor to make sure that had happened. And we've seen people restored, and a number of people. But then there are others whose attitude is, what's the big deal?
And they're not repenting to me.
Right.
Yeah, the repentant spirit has to be that they're doing it to the Lord. And my guys can tell you, we've had guys that have fallen off the wagon while they've been there, and we keep them on staff because, hey, they've come and said, man, I messed up. And I need to get straight, but there's some where we had that issue a few years ago. I just didn't think it was going to be good for the culture of the mission at that time. And you got to weigh those things up, Rob said. You can't just think about the two it's affecting everybody around them as well. It makes it difficult.
So you've actually set up some practices and some policies to deal with when you really have to help someone with their faith that's gone down the tube. And I appreciate what you're saying. You can't talk about it, but
I think the one thing I can say, can I turn this off for a second? How do I turn it on?
we'll be, as a facilitator, I will be opening it up for your questions too, but I've got one more that one of you's already answered with the word restoration. But as the CEO of a Christian organization, what do you see as your responsibility? And you're not a church elder, you're not a pastor, you're not whatever or you're not, but what are you? What do you take on as your responsibility as their boss?
Did you get my notes? You know, you're a church, so,
Well, truthfully, that's just a legal position.
so you don't call yourself pastor?
No.
Okay. Because some rescue missions at our churches definitely refer to I think Greg Kirk, for instance, I think. But, pardon?
Reverend Lehman?
Yeah, Tom Lehman. You know, we're not a church, so I'm not the pastor of a church because our mission was not a church. But you know, I still felt a strong, and I think we all would, responsibility to our staff to some degree to teach them and to disciple, to mentor, but to shepherd, but even more so to the people that we serve. That was I felt like my greatest responsibility was to protect them and to make sure that they were taught, that they had all the staff as examples of a godly life. And you know, I had a number of people. You know, somebody wanted us to have a probably Lorraine. You'll have to forgive me. Maybe I was never in favor of a staff person who was a pastor to staff, because they have their own pastors. I want them to develop that kind of a connection with their own churches and with their own pastor. And you know, if needed, I want to be able to talk to that pastor if needed, and that was rarely ever needed, except in times when somebody was in a sinful position or lifestyle of some kind. But you know, my greatest responsibility was to make sure that our clients and men and women, the young people, were safe and had godly people around them. But also, you know, there was a responsibility to make sure our staff was living godly lives. And again, you said about their fruits, you'll know them. And you know, we had staff that I heard were using cuss words in their classes, and I thought, that's not what we want. So
That wasn't me.
wasn't David either.
We were wondering watching you, Lorraine.
So I'm not a pastor, but in a sense, ultimately a pastor to more so to the clients than to the staff.
I think a lot of what they'll let you do, you know, because, I mean, like a couple of marriages that I mentioned the other moment, I reached out particularly to one extensively, and they didn't want my help. I mean, just I don't know where to put it. But just not long ago, we had one spouse of the staff member call my wife, and of course we take them out to eat, we blah blah, you know, we start engaging with them and trying to counsel with them, and we tried to pastor them with it, but we're not the pastor, and we do what we can, I guess.
Because you're all called disciple. Or you're,
I'm not a pastor. In fact, I used to tell people all the time that they'll call me pastor or reverend or something. I'm not a pastor. That's not how I came up through. My dad's the pastor, right? And so I would say, oh no, that's Doc Overholt. He's the pastor, you know. But truthfully, my role is being the pastor of the mission. You know, God put me as the head to minister to my staff, to minister to the folks that we're helping as guests and clients, and you know, if there's one that's gone astray, boy, you're trying to go get the one, you know, the 99 or back, right? So I think that all falls in place, even if we're not ordained. I think in the roles that we are, God put us in ministry roles, and if you're the head of that role, I think you are the pastor. Whether you know, like I said for years, no, the pastor's my dad, but I don't consider myself a pastor, but I see that we're in a pastoral role because we really have to shepherd the whole. And the shepherding is not just like from a pulpit, a lot of that is the vision that you cast and the things that you're doing with your staff to make sure that they're not infighting, they're all on the same page. I mean, that's a lot of things that we're having to do. You watch for siloing, all the things they talk about business-wise, really are pastoral roles. I mean, that you're trying. I go visit my staff in the hospital. I mean, that's a pastoral role, right? Because somebody's gone sick, or you know, we're praying for a family. I go to our funeral because their husband or wife has died, right? I mean, those are pastoral roles. So it is really a pastoral. After all these years, I finally got to say, it must be just I got ordained somehow, you know.
Our logo, in a sense, used to be an arm of the church. And so, you know, you're partnering with that staff person's pastor in a lot of situations. And, you know,
I definitely want them to go to their pastor first.
Yeah. You know, when I say because I agree, I call myself, not to other people, but pastor, shepherd, but in quotation marks as far as the word pastor.
Yeah.
But shepherding is definitely a part of leadership and the responsibility we have.
And our language helps us. Mentoring has become a good word. I'm honored when somebody says to me, mentor me.
Well, Anne's doing a lot of that in the place that she's living right now. So
I have an ministry. I live in a senior center that all needs to get saved or something.
It's never too late, right? That's what you tell them, right?
Sounds like it could be the hardest ministry you've ever had.
that's right.
Well, they don't know they're homeless.
Yeah.
I've had people ask me,
What's the difference?
what's the difference about working at a rescue mission, working at a church? I don't have to tell our people that they need the Lord.
That's right. That's awesome.
Well, we can quit early, but we've got 19 more minutes. You can have these guys if you have questions. What's on your heart?
This question's for Keith. If a staff member were wanting a raise, how should they approach it? I guess for everybody.
Wait, Adam,
That was
for me too. So Adam, I'm in my pastoral role.
He is offering.
Thank you for the daily bread.
He's offering you Dave Ramsey.
That's right. Yes.
I guess for all three of you guys, I understand there must be a ridiculous amount of like stress and worries and responsibilities, whether it be if you have thrift stores or if you have a program, overnight, women's side, men's side. What are some things that you wish that your staff members would do if you're like, oh, if they would just do this, or you love it when they do this, so to kind of make your lives easier?
I always loved our staff to learn the first names of clients.
Okay.
I just think that's so important, you know, especially I'm thinking, especially in the kitchens when clients come up to the window. I love it when somebody greets the person by first name. And I think that has such an impact on that person's life who may never have had anybody lovingly call them by their first name. So
That's good. I need to remember it.
Probably the real first name, not the nickname.
Yeah, we have so many nicknames.
Not
Yeah.
Peter.
Hey, cigarette
John.
butt.
Yeah, I hate cigarette butt, yeah.
I just have to tell one thing on Dan.
you don't have to.
He was my boss for 20 years. He preached to me over and over again. There is therefore now no condemnation.
Yeah.
And just repeat, getting it. And he'd always smile when he'd say it. Because I was wrestling with condemning myself or condemning other people or whatever, but he was discipling me by quoting something and making it comfortable. And boy, it became.
I think there's a lot to that, because when you're like in the role you're in, a chaplain's role, and you're doing this every day, all day, you're dealing with people's sin, it's an dangerous work. There's a reason why it says in Galatians 6, I think verse 1, and not rather than, I can't quote it, but it basically warns you, those helping the person overcoming with a fault.
Yeah.
And considering thyself lest thou also be tempted,
Right.
you know, and you can get in the flesh fast in this work, you know, I mean, you can get in the flesh fast, and that creates a lot of stress, because they try to, you can solve a problem with anger, at least the immediate problem, and I see that as a great stressor, that, you know, helping the staff to not get in the flesh, you know, or when you see it addressing, because
I was able to admit some things to staff. You know, I remember a time that somebody was complaining, one of the guys was complaining about the food. And so I confronted him. He reacted. Ultimately, I drug him down the steps and had my knee in his chest.
now that was in the spirit there, bro.
And Mickey Kalman used to say, what's the saying? Please be patient with me. God's not finished with me yet. He had the same kind of thing. But, you know, that guy became one of my greatest friends and respected me. You know, I had to go back and make some apologies. And that's always a good thing, when you can humble yourself and say, I was wrong. I treated you poorly and shouldn't have done what I did. I've never hit anybody, thankfully. I'm sure stopped a lot of people from hurting other people.
I think something that staff have to know, and it kind of goes with that, is that God has put the director or CEO in that role, and that we're only human.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to make mistakes, and so, you know, if you pray together, you stay together, right? And I think that the staff need to be praying for the leader just as much as the leader prays for the staff. And I know the other two guys, I know they were praying for their staff, and they prayed for their staff, as I do. And I think there's a lack of the other way back, right? That the staff, well, he's the boss, man.
Yeah.
He deals with the board and the politicians and all the rest of it. He's got it going on. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of prayer that needs to be for that person that's in that leadership role. A few years back, and I would say this was one of the best things I did, not that I got away because of COVID, but I went to a group called C12, and it was really for CEOs and business owners and things to get away from the mission, to talk to other people that did what we did, because it can be a lonely spot being at the top. There's sometimes you don't have friends that are staff, right? You go to them and say, hey, you've got to be a boss role.
Yeah.
And so that coming back and having that relationship where there's prayer from the staff to the leader, but also the leader to the staff, I think is very important.
I looked at C12 too. Probably expensive.
I had a donor pay for it. That's the reason we did it. It is expensive.
Anyone else?
I would be interested to hear, because I know what we do as a staff, if you guys do any fellowships, gatherings, or anything like outside of your regular work time for your staff, and if so, what that looks like, and if it's well received, or you know, what you do.
Well, from the HR part, we have policy that if you want to go on a 1 week mission trip, or if you're, we have a couple guys that work for us that are like youth pastors, and they do camps and things. We allow them to do that for free. They take vacation, they still get paid by us. There's no vacation, we don't charge them that, so you get up to 1 week, except for Adam.
He's like, I'm going to write that down right now.
And it can't be to Hawaii unless they invite you.
Maui.
But no, we really do it. If somebody goes on a mission trip, if it's even overseas or whatever, we want them to be able to have that time and be able to. I think that enriches the employee because they're in the grind of doing their ministry here, but to go out and do it outside and then come back and do it again, there's almost like a refreshing and renewing of their soul.
We did dinners for 8, and not long enough. I mean, that was really a neat thing and usually we included both staff and spouse and clients. And that is always just a great time of fellowship and getting to know each other, just as individuals, not necessarily as staff members, but wish we had done it ongoing. We did it a few times, but that was really something that worked well.
We also do staff offsites. And with those offsites, we bring in a pastor that will lead for the 3 days that we're off. And most of the times I tell them, listen, I want God to lead you to what to teach the staff during that week. And boy, some of those times have been the most enriching for the staff because they're able to fellowship together with, I'm not preaching at them or not one of the chaplains, but we have somebody else that comes in. And then a lot of the other time that we're doing is we're talking about the future of the mission. What an exciting thing that is you get your own staff engaged after you've heard these lessons that somebody else is coming and taught, and then you talk, hey, what are our dreams for the mission going forward? You're getting those folks engaged and saying, hey, listen, this is us working together in God's will. We want God's will to go forward. How do we do that if I don't know how things are going with the emergency services or whatever we're doing? So those are real good for us.
Who runs the mission?
We let the plants run.
Yeah.
No, we have a security staff that stays back.
And you all also are doing this by bringing folks to convention or conferences. David Phillips directs a weekly online opportunity. Hello, Colton.
Need to do an announcement from the front. We did last year conference and it was very well received.
And he's not finishing it, but he does this weekly meeting. He's got 5 or 6 missions that come online with him each Friday and have an interaction, just encouraging people.
So servant
You know,
leadership.
sometimes you have to go places,
Yeah.
Servant Leadership Institute, and it's free.
Created by our very own Maria.
Created by God.
Yes.
One last thing that we do HR-wise with our staff is we send them to other missions. So we have them go, we have National Rescue Missions an hour and a half from us, Birmingham, they've gone to Atlanta, some other places. We want them to fellowship with others and see what the others are doing as well. And again, they come back afterwards and they feel, hey, wow, they've got all these things they do. And then some of the things are like, hey, we've got things we probably don't want to do, right? That's all good too, but it's good for them to come back and feel that fellowship.
It's a Nashville and our mission. Nashville is an our mission.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to take my wife to go see my cutting show.
Yeah, Nashville, yeah.
Next year when we're going there, I'm going to try to work that out.
Yeah, come see us, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anything going, anything else?
I know sometimes folks that we hire or, well, yeah, we don't find that out until after we hire them. Some of them are most healthy emotionally. And when a certain situation comes up, they'll spiral, they'll react, or they can't hang in there with the stress of the work. Any tips you can give us on how to identify that mid-time or recover from that afterwards? Just had great
Someone's
on their
unstable
resume,
emotion.
great skill set, but there's just some wounding or some unhealthiness there.
I mean, there used to be something, forget what you call them, some,
Personality.
yeah, personality things that, I don't know if that would help identify some of those things, but there were some really good ones that we used years ago. I don't know, some that, then those went away and something else that wasn't as helpful came along. But yeah,
We pay for Christian counseling if that's needed. The mission pays for it.
I remember bringing in experts to talk, to help out issues.
Yeah,
But
that's
you're
true.
talking like individual.
Yeah, like the staff person that's great in this area, in that area, and experience and training, but then
I think
it seems like if you're in rescue mission work, you'll be tested on all angles, and once in a while you'll find that, oops,
I think
think it's such a wide variety, what could be the problem, and I don't have answers, wouldn't sort of bullet.
Yeah, I mean, you personally try, I think again, that's the role of, sometimes it's the HR person, but other times it's the CEO that, tries to talk and then identify whether that person needs to go to their pastor or to go to a counselor or that kind of thing.
Honestly, I do try to take some staff out regularly, just say, what's up, just to talk to them, and meet with them, and then my wife looks at me and says, you're eating too much bad food.
One of the things that we were going to do just before COVID hit, and then it got kind of put on the back burner, is look at corporate chaplains. And what that is, it's a group that comes in, and it's not your chaplains going talking to anybody else or your CEO. There's sometimes people are going through things that somebody from the outside, and it's a low fee. I mean, but when you have multiple staff, I know you guys got over 100 something, right? And you do. You're not seeing everybody, right? So these corporate chaplains come in and they'll meet with your person that takes out the garbage at the thrift store to make sure that everything's going okay. And so that's one of the things that's on our list to get back into. We were really going forward with it before COVID hit, and then that hit and kind of blew everything up, and we've got to get it back in our. But it's a really good program, good Christian guys that come out and they really take your mission on or your ministry on as really their family too. But they're meeting with these folks one-on-one to say things that they might not say that they could talk to me about, or even their own supervisor. And then the corporate chaplain comes back and in a general way says, hey, over at your store here, or maybe your ministry department over here, there's some of these issues. They don't talk about who it is. That's one of the things that's really confidential. But we're really looking at getting that done again at some point. And they help with that burnout. They help with the psychological side. All that is part of what they do as a corporate chaplain. So
We had great ideas today. Thank you guys. And we're going to ask one of you to pray to close us off because we know that's the real answer. But just what you are seeing in these answers that they're giving, God's in charge, and some of you are worried about their stress, but He's in charge. Would one of you close us and ask us to use these ideas? Ask God to help us.
James, why don't you?
Lord, we are just so grateful that we can always come to you, that you long to hear from us, that you love for us to voice our needs. Thank you for the examples of King David throughout the Psalms, where he just constantly came to you, both with joy and gratefulness and praise, but also he was so quick to say, Lord, I need you. And so I pray that each of us, and especially those involved in the day-to-day ministry with men and women, and even with each other, that we would grow in that area of really depending on you and bringing things constantly to you, and knowing that you hear us and will answer. But thank you for each of the missions during this conference that are represented, and pray that you would give each staff person real wisdom for, as a result, especially of new things that they've learned, or things that have just been an encouragement, or even I guess a conviction of maybe doing something different, or doing some things different. So just continue to use all the speakers and the various things that we're going to be learning and listening to, and we commit all of this to you in Jesus' name.
amen.
I think us as